when you come across somebody and they go to punch you and you block it, okay, I can block a punch. Great. You do that in a dojo 10,000 times. As soon as you walk out of the dojo, maybe you're fighting an untrained fighter, the way they punch you is not the way somebody who is trained fighter is going to hit you. And so your block doesn't work.
In this episode of the Shugyō Podcast, I'm joined by Joe Hicks. Joe is a third dan karate instructor, an active competitor, a parent, and an educator. He recently completed a 365 days training journey. And in this episode, we talk about what kind of consistency really teaches you, especially when training gets hard. Joe also shares experience training with dyspraxia, how that shaped the way that he learns, and how it's changed the way he teaches his students today. We get into keeping training real, flipping the switch under the pressure, and how instructor can adjust how they teach without lowering standards. This is an honest conversation about training, mindset, and doing the work day after day. Let's get started. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the Shugyō Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Joe, I've been looking forward to this conversation since September of last year. But before we get started, I'd love to find out more from you with your training experience. I know you have a long training, a lot of experience. Can you give us a condensed version of it?
Oh, absolutely. So I started training in 2002, and I did it 1 year of Shotokan then. And then being 14 years of age, I quit. It was one of those circumstantial things. Being a teenager, I was discovering other things. I didn't get back into martial arts for about 3 or 4 years after that. And then between the ages of 18 and I'd say 23, I experimented with judo, ninjutsu, Muay Thai, and boxing. And at the age of 23, I managed to find a karate dojo again. That was nearly 15 years ago. And I've been training karate steadily, consistently since. So that's my condensed version.
Thanks for sharing that. So for the past 20 years of training, how would you define the training that you do today compared to when you first started?
Oh, it's very different. So when I first started, I think expectations were different from not only instructors, but also students. So when I went there, it was because I was being bullied. I didn't really know what to expect. Nowadays, people have seen lots of different things about karate and they have ideas of what they think is going to be when they enter the dojo. I would also say that some parents think it's going to be a children's club, which, I mean, some martial arts clubs may be. Generally, I think karate clubs aren't. And they get a bit of surprise when they walk in sometimes. From an instructor's perspective, I would say that students now are not as physical as they used to be. I would say new students, like young students. When I was 13, I was out playing every single day. And now kids are inside playing on video games every single day, so they're not as physically fit. I'd say that's one thing that I've definitely noticed over the years.
It's funny that you said that about the daycare because I talked to a sensei also. He said that parents watch too many movies. They think that just by bringing the child, from playing video game, they drag them out to the dojo, and then the sensei is somehow able to mold them to the perfect human being that they thought it would be from the movies.
Yeah, that's a nice idea, isn't it? I'd love to say that I could mold everybody into the perfect human being, but it's just not feasible. And some people, it's just not suited to. Some people don't feel that they want to continue, and I understand that.
The reason why I wanted to bring you on today is I learned by reading the Buddha Mindset magazine that you just finished your training for 365 days. What did you decide to start that journey in the beginning?
I actually decided to start the 365-day challenge off of the back of a whim, really. Basically, I went through a lot of mental health difficulties for a while, and I was struggling. And that's just an open and honest assessment of what I was going through at the time. And every day that I did karate was a good day. And I felt better every day I did karate. So on the 1st of January, I decided that I was just going to do karate every single day for the year of 2025. And it started off in Bob Haig's dojo. It's in Shotokan Sheffield Karate Club. That was really, really good start. And it was also the final day was done in the exact same dojo. And every day in between, I did some form of training. I think I spent probably, on average, 4 to 5 days a week in the dojo. And where I wasn't training in a dojo, it was at home.
Mhm. So it was a New Year resolution thing, right, for 2025?
Yeah, I think it was, in my own sense, it was a Shugyō of my own. It was a
Mm.
development journey. At the beginning, it was just about training every day. And before I knew it, I was training with purpose and then developing. So I think that was really important.
Were you trying to develop a certain skill, maybe your kumite skills or kata? Are there a specific agenda that you want to work on? Maybe kicks or things that you feel that you could improve on?
I didn't really have an agenda at the beginning. I definitely wanted to work on kata. In previous training, I had done kata more for grading than actual understanding. That was true till about 2 or 3 years ago. And I knew that this year I wanted to get a lot more in-depth knowledge and understanding of kata. I also started competing for the
Mm.
first time properly. That was good fun. I did that, I think I was in 10 or 11 competitions last year.
Wow.
And I didn't expect anything to come of it. I was just trying to enjoy it. So got a few medals on the way. I'm quite pleased with that. So I'm happy about that.
I'd like to check in with you on the schedule. I know that you work, right? You're also a father, and then you also teaches karate. So how do you make the time schedule work? Are you a personal routine or it's just, spontaneous? I have time, then I'll train. Like, how does it work schedule wise?
I have 3 days a week that I teach. So that's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. On alternate weekends, my children go to their mum. So I was usually going to a dojo or a seminar on the Saturday and Sunday. And on the opposite weeks, to go to the mum on Wednesday and Thursday evenings. So I was trying to go to a dojo then. And if I wasn't able to make a dojo, I would clear the table to the side in the kitchen and just do some kata in the evening or some training of some description.
Mm. What are some of the biggest takeaway for yourself, in your skill wise, after 365 days of training?
Ooh, skill wise, I would say it wasn't about skill for me that I was trying to develop. I was trying to develop understanding. And for me, the dedication and commitment I needed to get through those 365 days was more important than anything that I could learn as a skill. Um, my understanding of kata has gone massively up in the year of training that I did last year. And also, I would say development of tai sabaki, so movement of the body to evade or to attack, has improved a lot. And also using kazushi, so destabilizing an opponent, has become much stronger as well. So those are the two skills that I've developed most. But for me, it's more about the understanding I've developed. If you think about, I think it was Bruce Lee that said, "I don't fear the man that can do 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man that's done one kick 10,000 times." The more you develop one skill, the better you'll be at it. For me, it wasn't about developing any one skill. It was just my dedication to karate, developing and becoming, having a greater understanding, really. I've gone and trained with all sorts of really high level instructors just to try and feed off of their knowledge and understanding and develop as well as I could in that year.
I think a lot of time martial artists develop a false sense of confidence based on maybe I've been practicing for 20 years. I've been practicing for, this type of arts, right? And then they stuck on their favorite techniques. So, but then when it comes to reality, they find out, unfortunately, quickly that it didn't work. Why do we develop a false sense of confidence in our skills?
Okay, the people definitely develop a false sense of confidence. If you're training in a dojo, it's a safe environment, as safe as it can be.
Mhm.
There's people there, they're training, they're not intending to hurt one another. So when you come across somebody and they go to punch you and you block it, okay, I could block a punch. Great. You do that in a dojo 10,000 times. As soon as you walk out of the dojo, maybe you're fighting an untrained fighter, the way they punch you is not the way somebody who is trained fighter is going to hit you. And so your block doesn't work. it's as simple as that. The only way to actually know if it works is to fight in different ways, develop different strategies, understand that nobody's going to hit you in a controlled environment when you're outside of the dojo. That false sense of security is a really scary thing. And I've seen it, I've seen the rough end of it, even in my own experiences. I think that you can't really train against it, but you need to not have that false sense of security. You need to understand to the best of your ability. For me, this year, Tai Sabaki has been really helpful because I've learned to get out of the way more than try and block. So if you can get out of the way instead of blocking, there's something's coming towards you, you can move back quickly or you can move to the side quickly. You've got a good chance of not getting hit. Whereas if I try and block and I miss that arm, I'm getting struck. And if they've got a weapon, I'm getting struck with the weapon. It's not helpful.
Yeah, is that why you enter a lot of competition? Because I think, a step up from training at the dojo, it will be to spar with people that you haven't met before. So you don't know what to expect, because if you train in a dojo with the same type of people before, you kind of know how flexible they are, high kicks, low punch, and you get used to it, right? But then for competition, you might be doing kumite with the person for the first time.
Definitely, I agree with that. Let's say you've got 20 people in a dojo and you're just regularly sparring with those people. After a while, you get used to what they're going to do and you can predict what they're going to do based on their body movement. So going to a competition, you're fighting somebody you've never met before. You step onto the mat, you've no idea of their skill level. You just got to go for it. There's no two ways about it. I wouldn't say it was a step up. I'd say it's a step to the side. It's just a different form of development.
So from karate, from the training, because when we go through some of the bunkai, right, in the kata, in the old ways, like if I really hit a person like that, you're going to seriously hurt a person. So obviously you don't do that when you work with your fellow students in the dojo. But, in the real situation, that might actually stop a person from advancing or try to, hurt you in harm's way. So how do you think we should train to balance both of it? Training in a safe environment in dojo, then if you really need to use it, you got to use it right.
Pressure testing. You need to put yourself under pressure in those situations in the dojo while it's still safe, but understand that there is the potential of threat in real life. I mean, I personally don't know any one great answer to this question, but I'll give you an example. Let's say you've got protective hand pads or something like that. So if you're stepping into somebody, you can have that on your chest and they can strike with the elbow as you're coming in. That's an example of how somebody might stop somebody coming close to you. There's also ways of taking control of a situation verbally sometimes, or if you feel that getting in close to the person, if you feel threatened but don't look threatening, you can actually move closer to them and engage them before they've realized. That's one thing that I've been sort of teaching some of my students to do. But that's only in the 13 plus class, not for the little ones.
Yeah, that's actually a very important skill, like for adult and for children. This use your words, right? So you could, that's the best self defense. You could talk people out of it, and maybe they wanted to beat you up, for example. But then saying the right thing can actually get you out of it without throwing a punch.
Absolutely. I would rather talk than fight. It's just my personal opinion on it. But then you've also got to be prepared to fight. There's got to be something that you can flip inside you that says, you know what, I know that something's happening now and I need to engage in violence.
So as a sensei, when you see a student who might develop a certain skill and they're getting confident because they know more, maybe they've been in dojo for a long time, how would you know that this is a false sense of confidence? Or you can tell, oh, okay, this student gets it. So, he or she will be probably able to at least save themselves from harm's way when they're actually out there.
Some people are not violent naturally, and some people are. I think that's just in the nature of certain people. I'm not a violent person naturally, so it was really difficult for me to develop this as an ability. You can tell which ones would flip the switch naturally and which ones wouldn't, and it takes a lot longer to learn to flip the switch for those who are not violent naturally. When I was 13, I was training in that Shotokan dojo, as I told you. My sensei was called Colin. I don't remember his surname, I'd love to see him again one day. One day I might, you never know. But he knew that I wasn't violent, and he stood in front of me one day and he said, right, I want you to throw a yakizuki to my stomach. So I did. I threw a yakizuki and I stopped probably 2 inches from his stomach. He goes, no, I want you to hit me. So I did. I went for it and I stopped as I touched his stomach. He's like, no, hit me as hard as you can. Okay, so I did. I actually went for it as fast as I could, hard as I could, and he blocked it and I went flying to the right because he was so fast. And it was absolutely brilliant. But that lesson for me was actually that you can hit somebody, because it had been fully ingrained in me from a young age that you don't hit, so that there are circumstances where hitting may be necessary is not an easy lesson for some people to learn.
When you said that, I actually had that experience before. Sometimes our sensei will demonstrate his skills and he could control his punches, right? By him hitting you, you thought he's going to kill you, but then he stopped like inches, less than an inch before hitting you. But if he really wanted to push it through, I'm probably going to fly away. For some people, and you're right, it's easier to learn because they just have it in them. But other, we have parents, and myself as a parent, I don't fight people right on the streets. That something that I talked about. Actually, haven't had a street fight for the longest time, but there are people who live for those things. How do you teach people to flip the switch? Is it something that can be taught, or it depends on the person's own personality, maybe life experience?
It can absolutely be taught, and life experience is also relevant. If you think about it this way, there are people who enter the military who've never been in a fight before in their life, and they're going to go to war. So the army have got a really good system in place for teaching people how to be violent in the correct way that's necessary given their circumstances. And the same lessons are taught in a different way in a karate dojo. It's just that getting used to the idea that you might need to be violent one day.
So let's dive deeper to the mental side of the training under pressure. When we talk about a real situation, whoever has a better mentality, or whoever wants to be flipping the switch faster or be able to stay in it stronger is going to win. So how do you train for that after we pressure tested? Is it something that we should visit always, or it's just depending on the situation?
I put people in the situations
Hmm.
in a safe environment. For example, I might have, I've got walls in the dojo, obviously. Might get a position where we put somebody up against the wall, have your hand around their neck, and you've got to teach them how to get out of it, but also take advantage of the fact that they've got developed control and do whatever is necessary to subdue that person, and having somebody's hand around your neck, even in a controlled environment, it's not a nice thing. It's scary, so when you do that to somebody, don't do it in the nicest way possible, give that little push and it shocks their system. That little bit, they go, I've got to do something here. And when they acknowledge they've got to do something there, that's a fraction of what they need in real life, but they've got it in their mind,
It's a fine line to work with, right? How do you apply the right pressure? Because we come in all different shapes and sizes. Some people are naturally stronger. They have a really big neck, like a rugby player, right? So some of us have pencil neck. So if you touch my neck, I'm gonna break. I think it's hard, and it's really on the mental side of things that we're talking about here. So some people just get it faster. Some people just take year and still might not able to get it.
That's all right. It's not about how fast you develop, it's about developing the understanding when you're ready. I probably didn't really develop any sort of understanding of flipping the switch till about 7 or 8 years ago. And that was because I was put in a real situation that I had to handle, and I didn't flip the switch. I was just getting around the car because someone was chasing me around the car. They were out of breath. I was moving Tai Sabaki, using my karate training to get away from them, but not engaging. That flips didn't switch that way.
Walk me through, since you've been into a number of competition in the past year, what do you tell yourself mentally before, let's say, you bow in about to do kumite match with someone else?
Well, I always tell myself that I'm going to win. Simple as that.
Nice. Nice.
If you don't go on there, if you're not going to win, what's the point in going? Um, but at the same time, I go there to develop and to understand, to learn from what I'm doing. I've got a competition in a few weeks' time. I've got one this weekend coming and one in about 5 weeks, which is actually going to be a big competition. It's the 5K fight night. I'm looking forward to that one. But when I bow onto a mat or into a dojo or anything, I leave everything that's not needed behind. So I imagine I've got a bag in my hand, and when I bow, everything that I don't need goes into the bag, I put it down, and I leave it there. And I go on as what I need to be. So when I'm going on to a kumite match, I am just a kumite fighter. I'm not Joe, I'm not a dad, I'm not anything else, just what I need to be. And then when I bow off the mat, I pick it back up, and then I'm me again.
In a way, that's you're saying and flipping a switch. So everything that you are, right, you leave it when you bow. So when they call Yame and you bow out again, then you become Joe again.
Yeah, that's it, basically. I mean, I'm just what I need to be, where I need to be.
That's actually really good. That's mindfulness too. We always talk about mindfulness, being in the presence, because a lot of time, especially with a phone, with social media, we're so engaged with everything else. We're trying to do one thing, but since we are preoccupied with all the other things that demand our attention, we're not focused at all. Even sometimes when we fight, we look at, is my hair okay? Is my D, being falling out of place? Like people do that. I see that, whenever they call Yame, they check the hair and they you're supposed to fix your gear, right? That's
I've never
people
seen anyone
don't
do that. That's an interesting one. I've not seen someone adjust their hair because they've been punched or something before.
People, like, you can see, but just by the posture and by way that they're focused, you can see it in their eyes, and you could probably tell who is better prepared mentally, and who might not want to be there and what's stuck to be there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some people do it for the fun of it. Some people do it because they're really competitive. Some people do it just because they want medals. For me, it's a combination. I love it. That's why I do it. I enjoy it. It's so much fun. I get to meet so many interesting people when I go to competitions as well. And I like winning a medal now and again as well. So it can't be bad.
So when we have our pre-interview call, you mentioned that you have dyspraxia. Can you tell us a little bit more about having dyspraxia shape the way that you learn about karate? And then as a practitioner, what are some of the challenges that goes through your body and your mentally, when you first picking up karate?
I'll just outline a little bit of what dyspraxia is first, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people, well, there are certainly people that won't know. So dyspraxia is a specific learning difficulty, but it affects the physical body more than the mind, I would say. It causes balance problems, coordination problems, and things like that primarily. But it also can affect certain connections between the brain and the body and the brain in the mouth. So sometimes I can't get what's in here, out here, or I can't even write it down sometimes. So for me, the physical side was very obvious when I was a child. I was diagnosed at quite a young age. I think I was 6, and that's earlier than most people would be diagnosed with dyspraxia. So I should have, don't anymore, but I should have really, really poor balance, poor core strength, and that was definitely really obvious when I was young. And so when I first started karate, it was not easy. I had to do a lot more work than everyone else to achieve the same level, or I feel like I did. When I started karate, well, when I was 23, and I came back to karate after the mixed martial arts training that I'd done, I remember I took my sister to one training session she wanted to watch, and we were doing a different kick. I think it was a spinning back kick, so a yuri, shuri, or shigiri. And it was the first time I'd done it, and I fell over like 4 times in a row just because I couldn't get it right. I just lost my balance and fell over. And it's actually quite embarrassing, you know. So I went home and I've probably spent about 3 hours trying to develop an understanding of how to do this kick. Now, as a practitioner now, I think it's actually helped me a lot to understand, because I need to break things like that down. And so when I'm teaching a kick like that now, I break it down into 4 different stages, and all of my students really respond well to that. I feel that it's helped me to become a better instructor more than a practitioner, to be honest.
So you say because of your condition, you actually understand more about the body mechanics. So instead of saying you go ahead and spin and kick, then you actually give detailed instruction. How do you turn? How do you chamber? And how do you
Mm.
kick and rechamber? So break it down like that. But and by doing that, you actually are able to do all those moves that you just mentioned, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And it really does take that breaking it down for me to understand how to do something. And being able to break it down for others makes it easier for them.
So it's not impossible, but it's just that the learning you have to adjust to your own condition. So to be able to improve. Like once you have it, do you have it forever?
No. No, it takes consistent practice. Um, it's like anything. It's like boiling water, isn't it? If you let the water cool, you lose it. The water's not as nice. You can't make tea with cold water. So if you don't keep it hot, it's not going to stay. I mean, I'm not saying that I would lose the ability to do techniques entirely or understand them entirely, but it definitely needs practice.
Mhm. Have you communicated with your sensei and maybe coaches when you first having a condition? Like, are they seems to be open and understand what it is? Because I feel like there are certain sensei they wanted to run class a certain way because if you fell out of the ordinary, you're not being able to address with special needs. It's not to say that you can't do it. It's just maybe you need more breakdown or maybe need more guidance, on doing the same technique. Would you agree?
Mm, I would. I would also say that I never told any of my senseis that I have dyspraxia when I was
Mm,
training. It was one of those things that no one knows what it is, or very few people seem to know what it is. And I was more hiding it than anything.
mm.
So I just did the extra work when I went home and hoped that nobody noticed.
So as a sensei yourself right now, what advice would you give instructor and then to tell yourself to adjust to the communication method for each student? Because you have more than one student, right? Everyone's learned at a different pace and everyone, again, in different shapes and sizes. So how would you actually see what's going on and what your philosophy behind, training the same technique in different ways?
It's really difficult. Let's say I've got a room full of people from white belt to brown black belt, which happened a couple of weeks ago, aged between 5 and 58. And I've got all these people around me, all with different levels of ability. And I'm just watching and I'm like, right, okay. I had one plan for the entire lesson, and that was to work on punches. So we worked on different technique, different form. So we did Suki, but in about 6 or 7 different ways. The idea for me was to let everyone learn at their own pace and develop what they needed from it. So the advanced students, I was looking for good form, body rotation, hip rotation, um, developing a greater understanding, but also showing good speed and power. For the lower grades, the white belts, I was just hoping that they got the twist right on the punch. And, some of them still didn't get that right on the day, but that's not an issue because they're developing at their pace. As long as I can see everybody's doing their best and understanding, that's fine. If somebody's there messing around, is it because they are young? Is it because they have ADHD? Is it because they're not engaging with the content because I'm not teaching them the way they need it? So I need to understand that as well. So if I need to communicate something in a different way, then I try my best to do that for all students. I mean, I've got a student with autism and she's absolutely fantastic, but she doesn't necessarily like doing certain things. When she isn't engaging with a topic or something we're doing in the dojo, she's advanced enough now that she could just go to the back of the dojo and practice kata if that's what she wants to do. And that's
Mm.
fine. When she was first coming, the very first session she came into the dojo, she'd booked a free trial session. She sat on a chair and watched me from the sideline for about 20 minutes, burst into tears and ran out. Came back about 20 minutes later, sat and watched me for another 10 minutes and then left and didn't talk to me. And I thought, oh, maybe she won't be back. She was back the following week and she came and stood in line and she was ready to engage. And she did a few techniques that session and it was just about going at her pace.
There's so much to learn as a teacher. You think doing the technique is hard enough. Wait until you actually have to show someone the same technique that you own, right? So, and then you think that you don't know anything at all because by breaking it down by what you just described, Joe, with the body mechanics, how you can move your body, other might not follow at all. They have no idea what you're telling them, right? You twist your
Mm,
body. What do you mean? Use your hip. Where's the hip? They're
mm,
sometimes like it's a fun conversation. At the same time, it's a hard conversation to have.
definitely. What I tend to do is I use walls. So if you got most dojos will have 4 walls. It'll be a rectangular or a square shape. And what I do is, right, you're pointing your hips at that wall or at that corner. So when they move their hips, their upper body will move. Because if you think about it, your upper body is just basically sat on a bowl, which is your hips. So if you turn your hips one way, the whole upper body moves with it. And that's how I work with the hip rotation side of it to help people understand it. Some people don't respond well to that, and I have to explain it in a different way again. It's just about how that person learns.
Yeah, sometimes we just can't tell left and right. So that's that's an even bigger problem. But what advice would you give instructor out there to adapt like the new way of communication, right? Understanding who your students are, what level they're at. Because I think you're right. When you have advanced student training with you on the same technique, your standard should be higher. Versus if a beginner who doing it maybe the first couple of weeks coming into the dojo, you're more forgiving, right? They're supposed to be wrong. They're trying to figure things out. How would you suggest instructor be able to point out that and adjust the way that they communicate?
It's really difficult to say how I would suggest it to other instructors because everyone's got different styles of teaching. From my perspective, it really is about looking at your student and noticing whether they're engaging with how you're communicating. And you can always, I mean, if it's a child, you can ask their parents how they normally respond, and that can help you. You can speak to the person individually and say, okay, how do you respond to this way? I had an adult student who said that I had to be really firm with her and with no shadow of doubt, I had to tell her firmly exactly what to do all of the time, otherwise she wasn't going to listen. And if somebody came in off the streets and saw me speaking to her the way she'd asked me to talk to her, they'd say, "Oh, he's really rude." But that's how she wanted me to talk to her to make sure she got work done, and that was fine. But that was her personal way of learning. She needed a firm person telling her exactly what to do, and that's what I did.
In closing, I wanted to ask you, and then feel free to take it anywhere that you like. We're speaking in January in 2026. What if someone do you wanted to be like you and start a 365 journey or training themselves to be improved? Like, since you have done it, how would you structure it or suggest people to plan for it if they do so wanted to train for 365 days?
I would say that it takes a lot of commitment, dedication, time, and planning. Okay, I was able to do 3 days a week just by going and teaching, so that was easy for me. Those 3 days were always covered. The rest of it was reaching out to other dojos. I've got a bit of a social media presence, not a big one, but enough that I've got probably 300 different martial artists on my Facebook account, for example. So I would put on there, is anyone training today? Or is anybody know of a seminar this weekend coming? Because I've not got anywhere to train. And if I didn't have anywhere to train, I would train at home. Um, if you really want to do it, don't make excuses. Make sure you're dedicated to it. If you have a day where you feel like you don't want to train, you do it anyway. Because there were days when I really didn't want to train. That's just the way it is. Sometimes you have a really long day, you're tired. I went to Romania for the European Championship. I'd had maybe 2 or 3 hours sleep. I flew back in the morning. I had a really full day and I came home and it was probably about 10 o'clock at night. I'd had 3 hours sleep in about 48 and I was at home. I hadn't done any karate that day. And I just looked around me in the kitchen and I just did Teki Shodan through 10 times
Hmm?
just because I needed to do something that day. And you know what? It wasn't pretty. It wasn't the best kata in the world, but I had done something. Those days where you're not sure you can do it, you got to do it. Maybe have somebody to kick you up the backside as well. I mean, for me, I had to kick myself up the backside. Oh, I've got a whiteboard on the side and I've got like things to do written on there, and I've got the kids' PE days written on there. Mine says "Dad every day," simple as that. So the kids tell me, "Dad, it's your PE day today," and I know that every day I've got to do some PE, some karate training.
Later on, would you consider doing it again?
Oh yeah, I loved it. Loved every minute of it. I'll be honest with you, there were still very few days. Today's the 20th, I think it is,
Yeah. Mhm.
of June. I've had 2 days this year where I've not done some karate. So I am still keeping it up there of just having a few rest days now and again. But what I'm doing at the moment is training a lot harder in the gym because I'm building up to some competitions. So I want to be better physically. I think the last 4 months of last year, I was not in my best physical form because I was focusing so much on kata, but I wasn't doing it in an intense way. I was just doing it in a understanding way. So when it comes to kata competition, I was rubbish, but my understanding was developing.
There's so many different aspects that we have to be aware. Yeah, and you only have so many times in a day. Joe, if listener wanted to get in touch with you and learn more about what you're up to, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
If they really, really wanted to get in touch with me, they could send an email to my karate club. So it would be senshinru@outlook.com. That's SENSHINRYU workshop WORKSOP @outlook.com. And that's my email address if they want to contact me that way. That would be the best way, I think. They can also follow me on Facebook if they really want to see what I'm up to. I'm usually off doing something.
I'll definitely put all those information on the show note. And Joe, thank you so much for coming on to the show today, and thanks for sharing, all the technique before your 365 journey.
Thank you so much for having me, Swire. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.